Nick Fish. Once upon a time in Messina there was a mother with her son named Nick, who spent all his time day and night swimming in the sea. His mother was constantly calling to him from the shore, "Nick, Nick, oh Nicky, come out of the water, will you? You're no fish, are you?" But he would always swim farther out. From so much yelling, the poor mother got a kink in her intestines. One day, when he'd made her scream herself hoarse, she pronounced a curse on him. "Nick, may you turn into a fish!" Obviously heaven was listening that day, for the curse took effect. In a flash, Nick became half fish and half man, with web feet like a duck and a frog's throat. Never more did Nick set foot on land, which upset his mother so much that soon after she died. The rumour reached the king that there was a creature in the sea of Messina who was half man and half fish. The king therefore ordered all his sailors that if any of them saw Nick, to tell him the king wanted to talk to him. One day, as a sailor headed his boat outward to the open sea, he saw Nick swimming nearby. "Nick," he said, "the king of Messina wishes a word with you." So Nick Fish immediately swam up to the king's palace. The king smiled as he approached. "Nick Fish," he said, "you are such an expert swimmer. I would like for you to swim around the whole island of Sicily and tell me where the sea is deepest and what is to be seen in that spot." Following orders, Nick Fish swam around the entire coast of Sicily. In a short time he was back. He related that on the floor of the sea he had seen mountains, valleys, caves, and all kinds of fish. The only time he'd been frightened was when he passed by the lighthouse, since he'd been unable to find the bottom at that point. "Well," asked the king, "what is Messina built on? You must go down and see." Nick dived in and remained under water for a whole day. Then he came back up and said to the king, "Messina is built on a rock, which rests on 3 columns. One of them is sound, another is splintered, and the third is broken." The king was amazed and decided to carry Nick Fish to Naples to see the floor of the volcanoes. Nick went down and afterward related that first he'd found cold water, then hot water, and in certain places springs of fresh water. The king was sceptical, so Nick asked for 2 bottles, filling one with hot water and the other with fresh water. But the king was tormented in the back of his mind by the notion that at Lighthouse Point the sea was bottomless. He took Nick Fish back to Messina and said, "Nick, tell me approximately how deep the water is here at the lighthouse." Nick went down and stayed for 2 days. When he returned to the surface, he informed the king that he had not seen the bottom, since a column of smoke was pouring from beneath a rock and clouding the water. The king, who could no longer contain his curiosity, said, "Dive from the roof of the lighthouse." The lighthouse stood at the very tip of the promontory, and in bygone times had lodged a sentinel who would signal the tides with a trumpet and hoist a flag to warn vessels to keep to the deep. Nick Fish leaped from that lookout. The king waited one day, then a second day, and then a third, but there was still no sign of Nick. Finally he emerged, pale as a ghost. "What's the matter, Nick?" asked the king. "I nearly died of fright," he explained. "I saw a fish in whose mouth alone a large ship would fit. So he wouldn't swallow me, I hid behind one of the 3 columns that hold up Messina." The king listened open-mouthed, and was as anxious as ever to know how deep the water was at Lighthouse Point. But Nick said, "No, Majesty, I'm too frightened to dive one more time." Unable to persuade him, the king removed his crown studded with dazzling gems and threw it into the sea. "Go after it, Nick." "Majesty, the idea! The crown of the kingdom!" "The only crown of its kind in the universe," said the king. "Nick, you must fetch it." "If you order it, your Majesty," replied Nick, "I shall go down. But my heart tells me I'll never come up again. Give me a handful of lentils. If I escape, you'll see me emerge. But if the lentils come to the surface, that's a sign I'll never return." They gave him the lentils, and Nick plunged into the sea. The king waited and waited. After an interminable wait, the lentils floated up. To this day one still awaits the return of Nick Fish.